Hello, my name is Debbie. I'm Owlandgator Stitcher. Welcome to Flosstube number 74. Today is Friday, May 16th, 2025. This is a video mainly about cross stitch, sometimes about what I'm reading and watching as well. If you are a new viewer, thank you so much for coming and checking out my video, and I hope you like it and you click on that subscribe button. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I really appreciate all of your comments. I know I'm filming less frequently than I used to in the past. It's been about 7 weeks since my last video. I did mention that in my last video that I knew at the end of April, beginning of May was going to be really busy for me, but I didn't want to wait until the end of the month. I didn't want to just skip a video and do it. So anyhow, I am going to show you what I've been stitching, and I'm just going to jump in because I'm so excited about my first project I have to show you. So those of you who watched my video last time, I want to say last month, but it was the end of March, so 2 months ago, knew that I had almost finished Portrait of Veronica, which is a Mirabilia, except for the beading. Well, I am so happy to say the beading is completed. So there she is in all of her glory. And I'm just going to apologize up front if you hear any cat noises. I have the cat in here and the bird feeders and the birds are all out, and she's very excited by it. So, but anyhow, here is Portrait of Veronica. And I did the skim 1/1. Tons of beads. There were over 1,000 beads that I had to put on this. So it was a very, very, very slow project when I got to the beading. I also had to put it on scroll rods, which was my first use of scroll rods. I use Q-snaps usually when I stitch, occasionally a hoop. But I needed something that had bigger space because beads are all over the place on this. Skin is 1/1, if I haven't mentioned this. I used all of the called for flosses and fabric, which is a 32 count linen, sapphire, star sapphire, I think, from Witch Out. And I'm so happy about this. This was my oldest non-full coverage whip, and now it is done. I will frame it at some point. I have not decided exactly how I'm going to frame it. I absolutely love the framing job that people do when they get like the cutouts and all of that. You see where the matting actually sort of matches roughly the shape of the figure. I'm not sure I'm going to do that because obviously that is quite expensive, but I will take some time to think about this. I'm just going to hold her up one more time because I am so excited about this. Let's see if I can get it all the way back here. So that is Portrait of Veronica by Mirabilia, and that was my first Mirabilia finish. I have quite a few on the go, but this was because it was my first one, and I absolutely love all the colors in it. It was one I really focused on. The others aren't nearly as close. But wait, I don't have just one finish. I have another finish. This is a much smaller finish. This is Dream by Joan Elliott. And I don't know exactly, well, I will FFO this, do a fully finished object sooner rather than later, simply because I am going to take this to a retreat and do it as a smalls exchange. So it may be a flat fold, it just may be a flat, like, mounted onto a hard piece. I don't do pillows, and also I think with the beads, sometimes that would be hard to do that anyhow. But this, as you can tell by the color, it is, when I had cut off the bottom, because that was a fat half I had purchased for that, I just, that's what I used. So it is DMC. I used the called for DMC on that. But what I changed was these beads were supposed to be a blue color, and they actually called for Magnificas. One, I didn't have the color, and two, Magnificas are so hard to find now. I wasn't going to try and find the I wasn't going to try to find the called for beads, and my English is struggling today, but that's okay. So I had some purple beads, so it called for sort of, I think, like a royal blue bead. This is a purple bead, so obviously not the same color, but I thought in the same spirit of it, and it was one, I don't even know what brand this was. These are beads I have probably had in my stash for 30 years. I way back when did a project that called probably for purple beads, and I found what I could and used those, still have them. And so I thought, okay, might as well use what you have. and not try and go find those Magnificas or try and get something that's a perfect match. So that's what I did. And so that is my second finish. I participated in April in something called Easter Start Fest, and it was a very small group of us that did it. The woman who hosted it was someone based in the UK. For those of you who are unaware, Easter weekend in the UK is a 4-day event. It's Good Friday, then the Saturday, Easter on Sunday, and then Easter Monday. And so most things are closed on those all 4 days if you have a sort of traditional job. And so as a result, she said, let's start all the things. And so some people went hog wild, and the idea was put at least 200 stitches into it. I was not going to start 10 things, but I said each day I'm going to start something and put at least 200 stitches in. So Dream was one of those. Second one, unsurprisingly, also on the same piece of fabric, not done. This is one that's called Hope. I didn't pull the book over, but I think with Dream, you can get the same, basically the same idea. It's got hummingbirds, though, instead of butterflies. It says Hope. It will have sort of the same beading pattern, all of that when it's done. Obviously, I didn't get nearly as far on this one, but this one will also be something I will take to a retreat and do a for a smalls exchange. I did one last year. She's got Joan Elliott has a series of 4 of these. Imagine, and then I think the 4th one is Believe, if I can recall. They're small, they're easy, and they are great to take on retreats. So these were 2 of my starts for Easter Start Fest, and obviously one is already done, and the other one, I hope to get done in this month. Okay, my next start for that, and this one really didn't get much progress at all, which is a shame because it's a beautiful pattern. This is a Dimensions kit, so it's a gold collection. This is Alan Maley's Gracious Era, lovely winter seam, and because I use the kit fabric and floss, I just wanted to start in the middle. And so I put in probably a little over 200 stitches and didn't get very far. So, and it's just a gray 16 count Aida. That's where I am. Obviously it still has the crunchiness. I'm fine with using the kit Aida because I know the crunchiness on Aida will disappear over time. There's a better view. So basically this is the umbrella, one of the umbrellas in the middle. So I kind of wanted to make sure I did something where I could pick this up later and know exactly which was the top. So the umbrella, that shape makes it clear. So that is my third start. And then my fourth my fourth start was Lavender and Lace, Fallen Roses. I love this pattern. I don't know, there's something just so beautiful about it. I don't know if it's just the way the flowers are, the letters, or just a woman's taking time to stop and smell the roses, literally. But I think it's absolutely beautiful. And so I really wanted to start this. So I did get quite a bit more done on this. This is probably about 800 stitches or so. So that's where I am. And that this is a 32 count Stormy Night, which those of you who are familiar, obviously you can see the back side. It's a printed fabric. And I did remember to use it on the correct side. So all of this is 3750. So that is Fallen Roses. And those are my 4 starts. Okay, the next piece that I worked on. So I actually picked this up like right after my last video. It was the end of March. For those of you who watch me a lot, you know I am inspired by a lot of the different challenge groups right now. Or I have been for the past few years. And so I was doing Laura Stitching by the Shore. She had her I Spy challenge, and I sort of had like accomplished everything, like my goals that I had set for March, but I still had a few of those items to check. And so for me, often the answer is Hawk Run Hollow, because with the 12 squares, there's so many options there. So here is what it looks like. This is a year at Hawk Run Hollow. I honestly don't remember what the prompts were at this point, because that was over a month ago. But I was working on the December block, and no, that doesn't mean I finished. I did here and knocked out, I think it was 3 prompts. So did those, but then just kept going. And I just do 200 stitches for the prompt. She's like, set your own goal. But I finished the block. I was very, very, very excited about that. This is the full coverage block on here, so it was a lot of stitching. And I was probably maybe 2/3 of the way done. But a lot of I had to do was the black, and I don't find Hawker and Hollows difficult to stitch. Each of the blocks don't have that many colors. They're just big. They're, I think, 92 by 92. So that means there's over 8,000 stitches in this block. But I just picked it up. I had stitching time, and I sort of got to that point where when I was stitching and saw that I could get it finished, I just put my head down and I stitched on it. So let me show you everything that I have done now. Oops, can I get it all in? And what I did at the end also was I then cut off the bottom. That was part of the reason why I wanted to come along the bottom, was to, this is a fat half, didn't quite need it. It is the fabric is 36 count Heartland by Picture This Plus. And wouldn't have fit on a fat quarter, but it just fit on a fat half. But there was a lot left, and I decided, rather than, it was just too much fabric to wrangle, so might as well cut it off when you know that you have enough. So that's where I am. So I am very happy that I got that block done, because that was a major accomplishment. I think I finished it in early April. Okay. Also, and I know it's sort of come and gone, but I didn't film a video since then. So I also participated in Springo, which is like a bingo game that they did in the, I'm going to always get the name wrong, the magazine monthly cross stitch challenge. It was a game where you had to pick 7 projects. Somehow Springo, like bingo, you had to associate with each of the letters. And then every day for 25 days, they called a number. There were 35 squares. And if you got either 7 across or 5 down, there were no diagonals in this version, then you got a bingo or a Springo. And they also then sort of, when some people were saying, none of my things have been called for this particular project, then they also said, if you do all of the squares, like as they're called, but you still have a blank square, like a blank row, because you could have potentially 2 blank rows, and then you would have a lot of bingos. Those, all your other letters would have been called. Then you also got credit for those. So not only did I not get a Springo, all my projects got called. So I had a lot of fun doing it, but I didn't get a Springo, and I'm okay with that. And I will say, towards the end, I think after day 23, I looked and I said, okay, there are certain, I still had a couple of things that, I only needed 2 numbers if they were called perfectly, and a couple that I only needed 1 number. And so I sort of decided that if I had one, I wasn't, like, if I knew a number was called and it wasn't going to get me a Springo, I stopped. And both the numbers on days 24 and 25 did not come close to getting me to a Springo. So I did 23 days and I worked on it every day. And then I just sort of stopped on the last 2 days because I knew I wasn't going to get there and I wanted to work on other things. But I still had a blast doing it. I'm really glad that I had an opportunity to participate. So for S, I chose Saga. This was also an April Whip Go piece, and I'm still up here. This has not been a focus piece for me. I love it, but it's not, I have over 70 projects right now, so not everything can get all the love all the time. And so here is where I am. So almost done with this first arch here. It took me a while to sort of get into the rhythm of which colors I wanted to do. So this arch is, I believe, like the masonry or whatever you want to call it. I am doing a 939. And then what I'm doing is each of the arches, I'm alternating for 3 different colors. So there are 2 of the colors, and the third one is sort of an orangish color. And I think I had to unpick a little bit because I had accidentally gone over and done some of like what should have been the purple in the dark blue. So a little bit of work, but I was getting more into the rhythm of it. So this time what I worked on was I almost finished this one, and then I came over and worked a little bit on the archways themselves. So that is Saga by Long Dog Samplers. And this is a 20 count from Grace Notes Fabrics, and it is Blueberry Milkshake. So for P, that was Portrait of Veronica. I actually did not work on it. I mean, I worked on it a lot more than it was called, and it was one of my last projects to be called for that. And I knew April in my non-stitching life at the end of the month was going to get very, very busy. And I also knew beading was going to take me a long time. So I decided I was working on it a lot just to get to the point where I could get it finished. I knew if I waited for all the calls to come, it was not going to get done. My R was Reading is Magical. And I did my fabric color you'll see is something very, very different. And so I have changed some of the colors in this as well. And that is from an issue of World of Cross Stitching, which is a British magazine. I believe it's from 2020. And here is where I am. And so this is a fabric from Valkyrie Stitchworks. She doesn't dye anymore, but I love this fabric. And I think I'm going to have to backstitch the letters. They aren't popping as much. The way that it is done on the pattern, there is a sort of shadowing of the letters, and that I couldn't find a good thing that I liked to shadow it, which was fine. But I think I need to do something just to make it pop a little bit more. Even like the part that's within the blue, it's not as detailed as I want. So I think when I get everything else done, I will backstitch. It's not a big deal. So this time I basically finished the blues in the sky. I did that kitty is done. The owl is not quite done, but it's mostly done. I did a little scroll. So happy with the progress I got on that. And I will say this chart is a little frustrating because it's for such a small pattern. It is split over 3 pages. And there's no, if I recall correctly, no grayed out lines. So trying to figure out where exactly I am on the pattern, it's not the easiest thing. I understand why it's split in half, but it doesn't have to be split over 3 pages. They made a layout decision that is not beneficial to the stitcher. Just going to say that. So my next piece for I. This is this book. This is Isnik and Delft Pottery. It's a book from Doreen Jones. And there's lots of different patterns and lots of different ways you can arrange things. So as a result, none of the patterns in here have names. They're just motif 35 or whatever. So this is the version I am doing. I've mentioned this in the past. I lived in Istanbul for 3 years. And I've been to the town of Iznik, which does a lot of this pottery. And I actually have pottery from that town, although not this particular pattern. But this is very typical of the pottery that is from that town. So it's beautiful. And here is where I am. This is 32 count even weave. The color I think is called Moon or Moon Silver. I can't remember the exact name at this moment. And so what I did on this, so I had the lines here done, but I did all the flowers in here and came down here, did a lot on this very big flower motif, did a lot in here, and then just extended some of these lines. The lines were sort of when I wanted to do some quick stitching, obviously easier. This probably has 12, 15 colors, not a huge number of colors, but it's a lot of chopping and changing. Absolutely love working on the colors, but it is because of all the changing as well as repetition. It's not something I want to work on for many, many days in a row, which is why even though it's quite an old project, it is only here. So that is Isnik from Doreen Jones. Next piece I have, I'm sure you're familiar with this. This is One Nation from Bygone Stitches. And I am doing this on a 36 count linen colorway Ale from Picture This Plus. That is the called for fabric. I am, however, using the DMC conversion, and the conversion actually calls for ecru for the stars, which I think if you look at an American flag is close to the actual color of the stars, but it is not what I wanted for I wanted the white to pop a little bit more. So I just did DMC Blanc instead. and this is 336. So basically, I did a bunch of stars. And again, this is a project that it gets a little repetitive after a while. I had wanted to get at least halfway done with the stars, and I don't think I did. I think I had probably 9 stars, and I think I'm up to like 23. So not halfway done, because I'm sure, as all of you are aware, there are 50 stars. And so did that, but again, because it's repetitive, it's something I wanted to put away for a while. Didn't want to, just work on it for days and days on it. So whenever it was called, I worked on it, and I put in each of those stars. The white, I think, is 97 stitches, and then there's 4 stitches of blue. So I put in a lot more than just the 100 stitches that Springer required, but I certainly didn't put in more, didn't push through to work on it every day till I got all the stars done, which is what I originally had wanted to do. All right, the next piece that I pulled out, so this is the G, Ghostly Greetings. And this is from a very old issue of Cross Stitch and Country Crafts from the 90s. It says, have a spooktacular Halloween. And even though this has a very vintage look, I absolutely love it. There is something just about the expression on the jack-o'-lanterns and the kitty cats and the way the bow even has its own little face in there. And so I have really enjoyed working on it. There is quite a bit of Kreinik in this, which not the easiest, but I did this on a 16 count Aida, or I'm doing it on a 16 count Aida, so it's easy enough to stitch it. So here is where I am. So what I had done was and this got called quite a bit at the beginning, and so I was able to do all of the bow here, do the jack-o'-lantern here, did almost all of the back stitching across the top there, and then I started working on what's in the middle. It does not look good right now because all I did was the Kreinik, and then you actually with so I did a have a, and then the Spooktacular Halloween, the vertical bits are all done in Kreinik, and then either the horizontal bits or like the diagonal bits are done with backstitch. And I wanted to get the Kreinik part done first before I moved on to that. So not there yet, but I am also using a different shade of Kreinik here than they called for in the pattern. I had some purple Kreiniks left over from another project, quite a bit of it, in fact. And so I made a decision to just use that rather than the shade of purple that they used here. I'm pretty sure it will look fine. Right now, it looks like a barcode. So I'm really hoping the backstitch will fix that. But it is really cute. Okay. So my last project that I used, the O White Owl, I will show that at the end. So that's Springo. Next piece was one that, again, some point I just wanted to work on something. And I will, hold on one second. I will show you at the end. I am modifying my plans greatly from what I started the year at. And so I will talk about a little bit about that. But this sort of, towards my modified plans, this helped work on that. So this is Simple Pleasures. This is charted by Pain Free Crafts, artwork by Chris Dunn. I absolutely love this. It's kind of, not that I knit, but I cross stitch, and that's kind of my husband, just sitting there snuggling. Neither one of us have really big ears, but that's beside the point. Just, sitting, snuggling, enjoying ourselves, the quiet. So that is the image. And here is where I am. So I have now, this is the top. All of this was already done, and I just reached over and did the top, got to the top right corner. And so mainly what I worked on here was this, a lot of browns. So did this, and then a lot of this pulled down. I had done quite a bit of there was a very thin bar here because I had originally, when I was working on this last time, I wanted to get to the edge, but it didn't quite fit in the Q-snap. So this time I made sure I got all the way over and then just was pulling colors. So not a lot to see in terms of shape because that part is in shadow. But I do like the way that this sort of hanging lamp or light lantern, whatever, is really starting to come out. You can see that more. So that is Simple Pleasures from Pain Free Crafts. And I am doing that on a 22 count piece of fabric. a heart hanger. All right, and now the next piece that I pulled out was Autumn and Stars Hollow. There are 4 patterns in this, which I am going to do all contiguously. And this was from the Black Needle Society a few years ago. Every year they were having a box that you could buy, and I did buy all the boxes. And so a lot of people have finished this pattern, all 4 of them, because it has been a couple of years since the box is finished. I'm still stuck in autumn, and I do love this pattern. I think it's really cute. Again, it's just so many projects, only so much time. I'm going to have to put something behind this. So here is where I am not going to take it out of the Q-snap because I am still working on this. But obviously I did a lot of this. I got all of the blue in. This part of the gazebo was already in, and I had the lamppost already done, but I did the part in the lamppost. I did a lot of the details. This is a box of cornstarch. I finished the football. And then just started working here. So this is the bottom of the gazebo and like leaves and stuff. So a little bit of confetti stitching, but it's not hard. This is a 28 count linen that I got in a D-stash a few years ago. And it was clearly someone had had a much larger project and they had cut off the bottom. So it's long and thin. So I am doing this 2/2. And so as a result, it's going to be quite large, but again, it's very long. I can't show it as long as I want it to be. Very long piece of fabric and not very tall. So I thought this would be a good thing to fit on there. So that is where I am on Autumn and Stars Hollow. And I do hope to get more work on that sooner rather than later. Okay, the next piece I have to show you. This is Little Cake Shop from Heaven Earth Designs. This is the Max Colors. Artwork is by Amy Stewart. So I already have this bit done here, and I now am working sort of in the ceiling and the molding towards the top of the ceiling. So this is where I am on this. Let's see if I can get, yep, there we go. So a lot of these sort of blues and these sort of tealish colors, as well as coming across in the molding, is what I did. So really pretty colors, and I love cake. So really enjoy working on this one. And this is also a 22 count heart hanger. Probably cut from the same piece as Simple Pleasures was on. Next piece I have to show you is Jane Eyre from the Stitching Book Club. So this was a stitch along that she did, I think, the very end of 2023, beginning of 2024. She didn't do it as a mystery stitch along like she has with some of her patterns. She released everything at the same time, but then if you wanted to, like, she had sort of set amounts to do each week, and I thought, oh, I'll keep up. Of course I didn't, but I still love working on this. There are only 6 colors in this. This is, I don't have the fabric in front of me, this is a 32 count. That's my 32 count linen from Fortnite Fabrics that I know, I just don't remember the colorway off the top of my head. And so what I did this time, I had a little bit done of Thornfield Hall, but I finished that. That was actually quite a bit of stitching. And then I came down and started, I did the busts and this, although I didn't get the words done, the 2 busts. And then, although I think she might need her head, it looks very flat on the top, so it may need a few more stitches. I did this, in my personal life, I'll talk about that at the end. I did some traveling, and I think when I travel, I have a master set of DMC, but when I travel, I pull out what I need and put them in little baggies and take them that way. And I think I must have been working on this and accidentally, when I cut the stuff that was used like in the actual skin, put it in the bit that I didn't use into the wrong baggie. So her hair, it should not be, it all should be this darker color. And because they're relatively close, I want to say it's like 3790 and 3781, although I could be wrong about that. I kind of thought, this looks weird, but part of this was on a plane and the lighting wasn't great. And so I didn't really notice it till I got home and like, oh yeah, that's not right. So I will do something to fix that because it should have more of that contrast like you see in Mr. Rochester there. But I really enjoy working on this. This is a project Melanie Watkins, she has a Facebook group, The Soulful Stitcher, and she has it where if you had to pick a certain number of projects, and if you finish half of them, then you go into a drawing. I am participating. To me, it's not so much about the drawing as it is about the challenge of at the beginning of the year saying I'm going to finish a certain number of projects. I think we had to do a minimum of 10, and I put 12. I probably won't get those 12 done, but I have at least two, including one very large one done. And almost everything else that I need to finish in order to meet the 6 done that I have committed to myself will be done. I'm not worried about that. So next project that I pulled out, this is an Old Sunset kit, which is a division of Dimensions. I'm not sure if Dimensions bought it out or it was always just Division, but this is called Bag Ladies. I am a cat lady, and so I do not have, there are 10 cats here. I do not have 10 cats. I only have 2. But those of you who have cats know how much they love their paper bags. So this was a lot of fun to work on. I was gifted the chart and the fabric for this, although the person who had stitched it had already used the floss. So I'm just doing a DMC conversion that I found online. But because it is a Dimensions kit, and it's a little bit slower because I have penciled in what the DMC colors are, but it's a little bit harder to work on. And a lot of this are half stitches, which for me, the way the angles go, I will always do my full coverages in full cross, simply because that is easier for me. Whereas I had much harder time counting off the diagonals, just the way that I count. And so even though you would say, okay, it's half the time, half stitch means that, 100 stitches, you're poking your fabric only 200 times, whereas at full cross, you poke 4 times for 100 stitches. But because I have to be take a little bit more time to think about it, it's not much faster for me than doing a full cross. But I love the texturing and the way it looks on the Dimensions kit, so I am doing it. And so what I did this time, so I had this green bag already done. I had the full kitty head done, and I had this bag here was kind of done, but what I've done is it was probably done to about here, so I pulled up and did all of this. I did all of the pink, this is a tissue paper. This yellow part was already done, but I need a little bit more yellow, and then sort of the dark brown of the other bag over here. So now you can start to see the outline of this other kitty. I am not going to, you can see they have sort of the shadowing here and only at the top, not at the bottom. I am not doing that. One, because I don't know how much I feel it adds to the project. And 2, because I am not sure, when you're using kit fabric, I always get a little bit nervous about is it enough? So I originally had done a center start whenever I had done it. And that way, that just gives me a little bit more breathing space. And if I keep sort of looking over the top of the computer, I'm facing the windows in this room, and my neighbor is out there talking with someone. And he's in my yard, but our houses are very close together. So I think they're trying to step back to look at his yard. So anyhow, sorry if I keep looking. And the last piece I have to show you, White Owl from Artisy, artwork by Kayomi Hirai. Absolutely love this piece. I am now at about 57%. So I think since the last time I saw you, I put in at least 6,000 stitches, if not more. So here's where it is now. So I did a lot to this wing is almost entirely done. And I bet you would love to see the correct side. This is the dangers of doing it in the camera. So this is almost all done. Obviously a little bit more down here. Where this dip down here, the blue sky, so almost everything around a few little ninja stitches there, but they're obviously very easy to see. I still need to do the eyes and the beak, so it kind of has a little bit of a ghostly look, and then started working on the other wing. So really, really excited about this one. And I am on target to finish it by the end of this year. So I have to do, well, it's under 4,000 stitches a month, but I'm trying to do at least 4,000 stitches a month. And that way in December, I just want to buy myself time in case something happens and I don't get a chance to, for some reason, get 4,000 stitches in. Or secondly, also means that if I finish it, say in November, or only have a little bit left to do in December, that sort of frees me up to do my planning for 2026. So I love working on that. It's something I work on most evenings, and it's very relaxing for me to work on that one. So that is all the projects I have to show you. So my immediate plans for the rest of May, so Bag Ladies was one of my Whipco pieces, so I'll put a little bit more into that piece. And then I also have my other Whipco piece, which is from Emma Congdon, one of her, I think it's Cross Stitch for the Earth, one of the pieces there. But I will show that to you next month when I work on it. So my plans, I think as I started this beginning of this year, I was very ambitious on what I wanted to accomplish. In the very end of 2023, I looked at all my existing projects and gave myself a goal on all of them. And this was going to be the year I was going to finish all those goals. They were very aspirational. I knew I wasn't going to finish them all in 2020. So I guess it was the end of 2022. I knew I wasn't going to finish them all in 2023. I knew that going in, and that wasn't my intention. But I thought in 2024 I'll do it. But then I got distracted by other things I wanted to work on. And so like I did the Heaven and Earth Design stitch along last year, and did the whole project for that. So that was about 60,000 stitches that I didn't get to do from projects that were from 2022 and earlier, as well as a few other things that either I'd already hit the goals on them or just things I wanted to work on. And so new starts and things like that. And so I was like, this is the year I'm going to get to that. But what I am discovering is that the projects at this point that I have not hit the goals, for the most part, there's a good reason why I haven't hit them. I am not going to UFO, make them an unfinished objects. I'm not doing that with any of my projects. I like them, but some of them just need to be done more slowly. And I'll give you an example. Both One Nation and Isnik, I enjoy those, but they're very repetitive. So they're not something I want to have to force myself to work on. If I force myself to work on it, I will resent them. And so they're ones that I need to do little bites of at a time, and then put them down and move on to something else, and then go back to them. And with for example, with One Nation, I wanted to get all of the stars and the blue Run the Stars done, and it's not a huge number of stitches, but doing the same thing over and over and over it just gets a little repetitive after a while. And I know there are lots of people who have done that by doing one star and one state a week or other things like that. That's just not the way I stitch. I want to be able to pick up a project and work on it for that day until I stop, like during the day, and then in the evening I'll pick up something else. That's just not the way I stitch. So I am changing that. But I still wanted to give myself a little bit of goal on what I was doing. And so in one of the groups I'm in, it's a group that it's Fandom Stitching Central. It is both on Facebook and on Discord. And so it's the exact same thing in both places, but you only need to post in one of them. I'm actually very comfortable on both platforms, but I have to say I'm not happy with Facebook right now. I have moments where I just want to stop and deactivate my account. Some of that is I just don't like the way that the company is run, and some of it is their improvements or not improvements in my book. This whole thing now where all the comments that we see are the newest comments, and it's sometimes very hard to see old comments, which if you are reading a normal post, that's great. But for the way that the Facebook challenges does in cross stitch, you want things. So like you set up on a cross stick. For example, in Beth Step Stitcher in her Crafts and Books group, the acrostic this month is Star Wars. Great. I type in each of the letters, and now it comes back. So it always wants to pop up newest. And yes, I can change it to oldest or whatever, but that's just an extra step. And I think many of us get to that point where we just want to get it done. You want to post your picture and move on, and that's just another step. And it's not a natural flow. So little things like that makes me want to do less on Facebook because of the way their challenges are. I like Discord. It's not my favorite platform, but for the games, I think it works much better than Facebook is at this point. So, but one of the games, Fandom Stitching Central, they had a challenge starting at the beginning of this year where it was choose 25 projects and put 2,025 stitches into each of them. And for every project that you hit that goal, you get certain points. And if you hit them all, then you get bonus points. And then there's also like an advantage because you can double dip with some of the stuff if you're doing that. So I am doing that. I also got boards at the beginning of this year, and I keep forgetting to show them to you. So I've changed a little bit how I'm doing it. So this is a board. These are my 20 for 25 projects, and people like Jen, the Caffeinated Crafter, who do this, they do have such lovely boards. Mine is not, but I actually am referring to this frequently, just a visual reference for when I'm stitching, so that I just have everything right there. So here is where I am. I updated this morning, and so here are all of the projects. And so basically it all is like out of 2025. And so, for example, this is the year Hawk Run Hollow. I hit 20 for 25. But if you take something like Tea Table, which I worked on a few months ago, I have a little over 1,000 stitches in that. So my goal is to kind of focus on these 25 projects and get them to their 2,025 stitches. I have touched probably 2/3 of them, and I probably hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And so 9 of the 25 have their 2025 stitches already. Some of them, like White Owl, I keep working on because I want to finish it this year. So that was never going to be a challenge for me trying to get that. I think I got that done by mid-January, if not earlier. So that is, but I think this gives me a more realistic thing that I know I can get done this year, assuming something doesn't happen that stops me from stitching. If you see a check mark, I am still tracking my goals for now. The old goals that I set in 2022. So if there is a check mark there, it means I've accomplished the goal that I had set for that project. But you can see I have a lot fewer check marks than I do things that have had 2,025 stitches. So I'm going to keep working at. I think this is a good sort of thing for me to work on. And some of the projects are like, One Nation, I will pull it out again because I don't even think I'm half. Yeah, well, I'm 1,300 stitches into that. So another few good stitching sessions and I will be at the 2025. But here is what I'm working on, so I can put my board down. And I'm always impressed by people like Jen, who do boards so lovely. You can actually hold them up and write on them. My handwriting is bad enough, and if I tried to do some fancy writing, it would not happen. So I also want to know what pen she uses, because my white erase markers, I write, and then all of a sudden there's the color fades very quickly. I'm talking within a minute. So I need to, clearly I don't have good quality. So I have ideas about once I hit this, what my plans are going to be. I will share that at a later date. I'm not quite there yet. But I think it will be something that I think I got so fixated on. I have to get certain things done. And I think I need to sort of step back. I was running into a little bit of burnout. Some of that had to do with what was going on in my personal life. I was very busy in a good way. But I think it just sort of, when stitching starts to become work, you need to step back and say, this is a hobby. I spend a lot of time doing it. I should be enjoying what I'm doing. So So that is it for my plans. And I only have one piece of haul. And so I've showed in the previous video that I'm a volunteer for our Friends of the Library. And there is a crafting section. Most of it is patterns. And a lot of them, people have donated these patterns. So a lot of them, it's hit or miss what people choose to donate. But clearly a stitcher donated a lot of stuff. A lot of it was kitted up. And I purchased a few memorabilia patterns with the fabric and beads. Some of it had the DMC, some of it didn't. And I purchased those a while ago, but then this one was just calling my name, so I had to go back and get it. And this is the Willow Queen. So this is actually an Aurora Corbett and not memorabilia. So it's a much smaller one. But in here was a fabric, which I don't know if that's called for, but it looks very close to it. All the beads, as well as the Caron water lily. And I paid a whopping $2.50 for that. So a great deal. Whether or not I will actually do that or I will just cannibalize the floss and do something else, I don't know yet. But $2.50 for all of that. And it's in good, the other stuff was in excellent quality. I have a feeling a stitcher might have either passed away or had some vision problems or something that wouldn't allow that person to continue to stitch in the future. And so as a volunteer who goes in routinely, I am allowed to purchase things prior to the sale. And so that's what I do. Books, I tend not to do it. As you can see, I have a lot of books to read. And yes, almost all of these are books that need to be read. I buy those on Dime Day. Very few of them are like from new bookstores. Most of them I go on Dime Day. A lot of them are really old. But anyhow, I'm going to now jump in since I've already started talking about books. So that's it for the stitching. So thank you if you are leaving. Thank you for watching. But I'm going to talk a little bit about books. I always highlight a book that I've read since my last video that I want to talk about. And the book I want to talk about this time is from Emily Henry. It is, I'm going to get the name wrong, Great Beautiful Life. I think that's the name. It might be Great Big Beautiful Life, but I think, anyhow, I did win that as a giveaway on a Kindle from Goodreads, but it was a book I was going to read anyhow. Emily Henry, I've read one of her books that I did not like. I mean, like strongly reacted to it. And it wasn't the writing. She's an excellent writer as a skill, but the characters and the plot, whatever. But this book, but like everything else I've read by her, I've absolutely loved. And this one I absolutely love too. And the basic plot, for those of you who haven't read it, it's about a woman, I want to say late 20s, early 30s, who is a writer. She works for a magazine, sort of entertainment magazine, but she's writing real pieces for it. It's not a like gossip rag. She's writing real pieces for it. And she has an opportunity she finds basically a woman who is a wealthy heiress who has been living as a recluse. And the woman is now in her 80s. And she reaches out to her and says, I'm a writer. I would love to write your biography. And the woman says, I'd like to meet you. And she goes to meet the woman. And then she finds out that she is not the only person that the woman has reached out to, but there is another author who is an established biography writer. And so she has reached out to him as well. And so basically they have to spend a month. They're competing for the job. And this is a woman who has lived as a recluse for 30 years. And she was incredibly wealthy. And she was married to like a musician that is basically, they call him like the poor man's Elvis or something. So think of like in the 50s, that kind of music. And she basically, so you're getting, it's a combination of, obviously it's Emily Henry. It's a romance between the two writers, but then also you're getting the whole backstory. And the romance is part of her, like meeting the love of her life is part of it, but it's not all of it. And so it's very well done. And I will say, I was a little bit concerned about how are they going to resolve this issue of only, she's going to pick one of them. And even if, you're going to resent that, even if they like, oh yeah, we're not going to have any issues, there's going to be some jealousy or resentment that you were not chosen. And I was a bit concerned about how she was going to end it, that it wasn't going to feel real. And no spoilers, but I was pleasantly surprised by the ending, the way that she dealt with it. It's a romance, they're going to end up together. And if that's a spoiler, you haven't read Emily Henry or really any romance. But that's sort of not the point of the story. The point is obviously the journey. And unlike a lot of her books, I think the whole backstory of this woman was very interesting, and sort of the pressures that are put on the children of very wealthy people. And so it's very well done. So I think it's Great Big Beautiful Life, or Great Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I highly recommend that you track it down and give it a read. And what have I been watching? I think I was very late to the party on this one, but The Pit, which is on Max, the streaming service. And this was supposed to be a sequel to ER, and it stars Noah Wyle. But the family of the creator of ER, they couldn't come to terms with the people who were producing this. And so basically they they basically changed the character enough. It's a medical room, it's an emergency room drama. There's plenty of those out there. That is not a brand new creative idea. Private practice and Grey's Anatomy and all of that. But they changed it enough. But the basic premise behind it is that it is one day in the ER. And Noah Wyle is the chief of, my medical terminology is gone, but he's in charge. But it's sort of, so it's a combination of sort of looking at the, yes, it's going to be 16 hours in the ER, but you get the backstories of some of the people who work there, the drama of, dealing with patients, and quite frankly, the difficulties of healthcare in an American city. It's called The Pit, and it takes place in Pittsburgh. So it's interesting. I'm really enjoying it. It's hard to watch at times. For those of you who've been watching a long time, my father died about 1.5 years ago, and there is one case in particular we're about halfway done, and this is in the first case that they're very, I'm looking at the equipment that they're using, and it was stuff that my father had, and it's very emotional in some ways. The case is very different than my father's, but sort of the decisions the family had to make and stuff. It certainly rang true to me. So highly recommend that. Okay, so on to my personal life, what has been going on. So as I mentioned, I'm a volunteer for our Friends of the Library. We had our semi-annual sale. So our Friends of the Library is bigger than they are in a lot of places. We are in a university town, and we have many, many generous donors who give us their book collections. And so I believe they estimate that we have about 500,000 objects. And the reason why I say objects is that it's more than just books. It's CDs, it's DVDs, it's, okay, obviously, like, you can talk about the leaflets for the crafts, but obviously, like, crafts and stuff too. I have gotten Dimensions kits in the past from there. They sell artwork. And so it's a big deal. It's an event in town. And it's basically, I think it was a car dealership either from the 1930s, the 1950s. So think of like a car dealership with a very big open space, not air conditioned. So it was in April. First day was really hot. A lot of people, and I think it was about 90 degrees outside. As many fans as possible. This very high ceiling, but it was warm. And I sort of jumped back and forth. So I helped manage the romance section. So I was doing a lot of restocking. We can't put everything out when you have 500,000 objects or books or whatever. So we have things that are boxed, and then as shelves purchased, we replenish. So I was doing that, but then I work helping check people out. I also did a little bit with the Treasury, helping with that, because while we do accept credit card now, some people want to pay with cash, and that's great. But making sure that the cashiers had their the money they needed, as well as collecting the money and counting it, and then getting it to the bank and all of that. So lots of different things. Really, really enjoy doing that. The money that is raised goes back into programs for our library, again, in my county, because it's a university town. we are very fortunate that we have a lot of people who value what the library does for the community. So it is not underfunded. I'm sure the librarians probably aren't paid what they deserve, but in terms of the collections and their ability to get things, they do a great job, and they have a lot of programs. So we are not supporting the collections per se, but we do support programs at the library, and they also have separate programs as well to support literacy programs, some for children, some for adults. Just a lot of great things to help the community and also help get really affordable books into the hands of people. So I go shopping on what they call Dime Day, so 10 cents, and I buy, I go in before that part, and I just, I think this year I limited myself to 20 books. Will I read them all? Who knows? But it's a great chance to get maybe some older books that I want to read. So I did a lot of that. I also then, as soon as the sale ended, my mother wanted, she had a car that my father had. They had a leased vehicle. They only had one vehicle for the two of them at that point. And so the lease was coming up, and she didn't want to buy the vehicle outright, so she needed to get another car. So I had to go car shopping with her. And I don't like car shopping. It is, I'm very happy to cede, all the research and all of that to my husband. We do go together and buy the cars, but he does like the lion's share of the work, and I'm very fine with that. But my mother, my dad would get the cars, and she was fine to cede all of that to him. And most of the time, she didn't even go and test drive. He would come home with a car, and she was fine with that. So this was her first time in a very long time going to buy a car, and she wanted someone to come with her. So I live in town. I went with her. We had to go car shopping. It was not a bad process. She was happy with what she got, but it was just sort of at the end of a very long week going out and having to spend a few more days, and dealing with that wasn't exactly what I wanted, but she needed to do it. Her lease was up, so she didn't have more time. And I don't care what they say. It takes, you make the decision. It's a lease. So, you have to obviously put the down, a little bit of money down. But it takes forever to do the paperwork. And I felt like she had to sign the same paperwork 3 times. It is painful. But that is over. She's happy with her car. And then as soon as we bought the car a day later, or she got the car a day later, my husband and I got on a plane and we went on vacation. We went to the United Kingdom. My husband is originally from England, although he is now a U.S. citizen. And anyhow, but he just wanted to go home. And so we went, we spent a little bit of time in London, but to be honest, we didn't do really anything in London. We just got some meals because he's lived in London. I've been to London many, many times, and we were just trying to deal with the jet lag. What he really wanted to do was go to the South Coast, Dorset, where he's originally from. We actually stayed in the town of Bournemouth, which is not where he grew up, but he wanted to go. And we stayed in a hotel. It was a Marriott, and the hotel itself was fine, but the building was 150 years old. So it has all the quirkiness of an old building with modern plumbing though. But the point why he wanted to stay there was it was up on a cliff, and we had a beautiful view of the sea. And so that was the point. And the weather there was absolutely gorgeous. It was probably in the upper 60s to low 70s. Of course, being from Florida, we bundled up. I shouldn't say when we were walking around a lot, we were not bundled up. But, when we went to one restaurant and we're putting on sweatshirts and we're freezing, and all the Brits are out there oh, it's gorgeous. I think it depends where you live and what you're used to. And upper 60s to low 70s for me is not warm. It's not cold, but it's not warm. So we just had a good time. We ate some good food and did a lot of walking. And I went to a bookstore because apparently, even though I can get all these books, I still need more books. But I limited myself to one, and it was a book that by a local author in Dorset, and I would be much harder and more expensive to get here in the U.S. because let's face it, you buy it, you got to carry it. So that was a lovely, lovely trip. I'm really glad we did that. And now I am back, and I am going off next week to a retreat. So it's Stacey Nash and the Blue Flower. So I'm really looking forward to that. And that is a couple hours away from me. So literally I'm getting up early on the day it starts, because I think the doors open at 8, and it's about a 2-hour drive. So I'm getting up early, and I'm just going there, and I'll spend a couple nights, and then I'll come back the day that it's finished. I'll just drive back in the afternoon. So really, really looking forward to that. Other than that, that is what is going on in my life right now. My next video I probably will do towards the end of June, so another 6-7 weeks. And I look forward to seeing everyone then. So happy stitching. Bye.